Hey guys, it's Catherine Morgan here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now this channel is here to bring you short but powerful videos to help you to navigate both the emotional side of money, our relationship with money, and the practical steps to help you to reduce financial anxiety and become more financially empowered to deserve wealth, grow wealth, and create wealth. My name's Catherine and I'm a qualified financial planner and international multi-award winning financial coach. That's a bit of a mouthful. So welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button and do leave me a comment below and let me know what was your biggest takeaway from listening to this video. Speak to you soon. So I'm really excited about today's podcast episode, which we are currently streaming live to Facebook too. And I'm interviewing Andy Webb, who is one of the leading, he's a multi-award winning money blogger. You may have seen him on TV with his show I can't say this quickly, Shop Smart Save Money. And he's been blogging now for 6 years. He has a website called becleverwithyourcash.com. And originally I connected with Andy through his Facebook group. So Andy set up a Facebook group called UK Money Bloggers. And I've been involved with the UK Money blogging community now for 3 years. Yeah, it's just gone so quickly. And I can honestly say that the group of people in that community were a huge inspiration for me when I first started my business. Because when I first started the Money Panel, I started blogging. That was what I did. But I didn't know how to blog. I had no idea how to write. And so I was introduced to people's blogging courses, and I learned how to, how link backs work and apps and plugins and websites and all sorts of things. So a massive thank you first for Andy for forming that community, the power of Facebook communities, right? It's just wonderful. So
yeah, it's no problem at all. It's lovely to sort of have yourself and other bloggers kind of sort of come together through that. It's been a really nice surprise.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, honestly, it was so supportive for my initial journey, and continuing to. But certainly in the early days when I first started my business, I didn't know where to get started. I didn't know how to do anything. So that community, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for starting that community. But we're here today to talk about Andy's favorite money apps. And we've also put a post into that community, the UK Money blogging community, to find out their favorite money apps. So we're going to be talking through some of those today. We'll see whether you're using some of these at the moment, whether you've never heard of them. I mean, some of them that have come into the Facebook group, actually, I've never even heard of. So it just goes to show that when you think you know of every single app that is on the planet, probably another dozen have been formed or created just in the space of a couple of weeks. So let's get stuck straight into this then, Andy. So first of all, could you just, I know I've given you an introduction there, but could you just tell us a little bit about, before we go into your favorite money apps, how did you start in your journey as a financial journalist and writing about money?
Yeah, so my background, I worked at the BBC straight out of uni. I was very lucky to do that. It was one of the graduate schemes. I always wanted to work in TV. It was my kind of, that's fantastic. It's going to be great. It wasn't for me. It wasn't quite the right thing. So I was at the BBC for about 11 years. And I say, luckily, right now, not everyone would agree with this, but luckily at the time, I was able to get voluntary redundancy. So I kind of had a nice bit of cash to kind of keep me going. Went traveling for 6 months. And then when I came back, I said, well, what do I want to do? And because I had that bit of money, and I think that's so lucky that I was in that situation, it meant I could really, really think about what I wanted to do next. And I knew it wanted to be something creative and something I was passionate about and something that helped people. But I couldn't really nail down what it was going to be. And then my wife pointed out to me, she said, well, what about something to do with money? Because you're really good at helping me and friends and family. And I hadn't even really thought about it as a thing that could be a job. It turns out it was my hobby, was money saving. I kind of describe myself now often as a bit of a money nerd, bit of a money geek, because I really, really enjoy talking about it, finding ways to get the best value for money. So that's what I did. So I actually went on an internship at Money Saving Expert. So I was just 30 something years old, 33, 34, something like that. And normally an intern there was like straight out of uni, 21 years old. So it was an interesting experience for them and for me, I think, because that I was so much I knew I could do, but it's, you know, you're in a certain position. But I learned a huge amount, and it made me really open up to that idea of how digital formats can actually be something, you've got that control. You can do what you want to do a lot of the time. You can, but at the same time, help people be creative in that sphere of money. So I set up a blog, never thought it was going to be something that could become a real job. It took a long time for it to become my full-time job. But it has. And now this is what I do. I've got Be Clever with Your Cash, as you say, is the blog. I've got my Cash Chats podcast. Did some TV, freelance journalism, things like that. But yeah, I spend all day, every day, talking about money.
Yeah, money. So a really quick question then. So when you said that like this, you were always interested in this, it was kind of like you turned your passion into your profit, right? Into your business, into your profession, into your career. Your early relationship with money growing up then, did your parents, what was your parents' relationship with money? And did that pass through to you? Was that where the interest came from?
Yeah, now sometimes when you see people in our sort of world in terms of that kind of money blogging, money podcast as well, a lot of the time people have come from a situation where they've had a real struggle and they've learned the hard way about the importance of money and how you use it and how you approach it and manage it. I don't have that. I've just always been quite good with it. And I think that does come from my parents. I do a monthly column in the Reader's Digest every single month. God, about the last 4 or 5 years. And for a while, I had a little section called My Mum's Money. And just talking about what my mum was up to in cash, because she's always been very good at it. She's always been very savvy. You know, she used to, growing up, she would have Witch magazine. You know, I remember we always used to watch Watchdog. You know, they're the kind of things that I were always, I guess, that kind of just an understanding of money and your consumer rights and things like that has always been there. And a lot of that does come from my mum. And but I wasn't really aware of it. You know, I was someone who would spend too long, like far too long, looking for the best priced, I don't know, TV or something like that, or anything. I would just, with minute detail, try and work out, do I want this one? Do I want this one? Which one's the best value for money? So it's always been there, but it was that kind of translation of something which I didn't realize was my hobby, but was my hobby. I say into a career. So and I appreciate I'm very lucky. Not everyone can have that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love how you've got a little column for your mum. Like, that's great. And actually, I know that you did an article recently in Reader's Digest about the top UK money podcasts. And I was very grateful that you mentioned ours in that. So I actually, I managed to get a physical copy, because it's really hard to get physical copies of the Reader's Digest without subscribing. And so I messaged them on Twitter. They sent me a copy, and I've sent it to my mum. Actually, I'm like, Mum, you used to get these magazines when I was growing up. It just felt a bit surreal, really. So thank you. Yeah,
you can get it in WH Smith's. They're still open. Still, most of those WH Smiths are open, so you can grab one there. Be a different issue by now, probably. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. So let's get straight stuck into your top money apps, Andy. So I know you've written a blog around this, and we're going to link back to this actually in the podcast show notes and in the weekly blog. But let's start with what's your absolute favorite? What would be your go-to money app that you would never, ever give away or hope that it would never close down?
Well, you know what? I think the most important app for everyone, and it's a bit of an obvious one, but I think it is your banking app. You need to have this. Now, people who listen to my podcast will know that I've got a lot of current accounts. I think I'm on 14 or 15 right now.
Wow.
I know. I mean, that's another story for another time. So I have a lot of them. But even if you've only got one or two, and again, same with credit cards, having that app, having access to that on your phone is one of the most important things you can do. And I know lots right now during COVID, the people who are really, I think, struggling in managing their finances a lot of the time, in terms of like technically managing, not about income and expenditure, are those people who are essentially digitally excluded. So the elderly, you know, people who have relied on going to the bank or phone banking. You know, okay, I know lots of us have online banking just on your computers, but having it on your phone, within a few clicks, you can see all your expenditure coming in and out. It's just the most important thing. And they're getting smarter and smarter. Partly, I think, because you've got banks like Starling and Monzo, which are app owners. You can only have these accounts if you've got the app. but they're driving all these innovations. So when you spend money, it will pop up as a little notification on your phone, so you see how much you've spent. Now, in normal times, that's fantastic. Say you've gone to a bar. Remember when we used to go to pubs and things like that? But this idea, you know, how often you would just tap your card contactlessly. You wouldn't even check it. You wouldn't even necessarily know quite what you've spent. And you wouldn't get a receipt because it's so much more hassle. And half the time they've walked off to serve somebody else. But if you've got one of these, again, not every banking app will have this feature, but it pops up. You've just spent this much. Helps you kind of realize a bit more exactly where your money's going. That kind of thing that you do lose when you don't use cash.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like an out of sight, out of mind. And we live in a digital world now, don't we? That if we don't handle physical cash, I mean, I never handle physical cash ever. Like if I have to get a tenner out of the cash machine, it's like a random, because I'm paying football fees or something like that on the football pitch. But it's so rare. And like you say, it's out of sight, out of mind, can make it difficult then for people to manage money. Yeah.
And I think there's features like that. And there's so many more things that the banking apps are doing that really kind of, as best you can, bring that forward. And they have extra features as well, such as helping you kind of identify where the types of spending that you've got. So I think fundamentally, have your banking app on your phone and use it daily if you can, just to check things, what's going on. The next step from that maybe would be to look at some of these banks which have extra features. But the other thing further from that, and if you do have multiple accounts, other apps that I really like are these aggregators. And I don't know if you've had any of these, but they're essentially what they let you do is you see all your accounts. It could be current accounts, sometimes savings accounts, sometimes credit cards as well. Again, they're all brought together on a single dashboard, and you can see it and see everything, which is a really, really useful tool as well.
Yeah, I've used Money Dashboard, Emma. They're my two favourite go-to. I can't even say the word. Aggregators. Thank you. Have you got any particular preferences to which one you use?
Yeah, I tend to use Yolt. Yeah, Yolt is a decent one. That's actually, I mean, it's fintech, but it's owned by ING, who are also a big Dutch bank. So they've got a lot of backing behind them, which is probably why they're doing, I guess, relatively well in that sphere. There's new ones all the time. There's a new one called Snoop, which looks quite good as well. I think they're much of muchness, if I'm honest. A lot of the time, I would maybe try them all at once if you can, not all of them, but put 2 or 3 in, download them all, connect them to your accounts, and see which one you like best, because they analyze your spending, which is fantastic. They can send you notifications about when you're at certain spending levels. They all have nice little features. I guess the question is, how sticky are they? Do you download them? Great, I'm going to keep at this, and then it kind of disappears, like so many apps in general, not just money apps. So many apps just kind of disappear, and they're like, I don't know if I can show you for the people watching this rather than the people who are listening to this, but there's my phone, and I've got so many apps in here, and even more than that because they're all sort of split into kind of things like that.
Ditto.
Yeah. hundreds. I won't use half the time. So I think, do you know, one of the things that I'm actually going to start doing this on some of these aggregators, because thinking about this before this interview, I'm turning on notifications. I hate notifications on my phone. I really hate it. And if you had it for every single app, it would be too much. But I'm going to be quite selective and give these aggregators a go, because I think it could be really useful insight to where my money's going. Of course, my money isn't going to many places right now. But I think those two, I think they're the most important things you can think about. If you've only have one thing, it's got to be your banking app. If you have multiple banks, have their apps and have an aggregator.
Great. And just a word on these platforms as well, is that often people are quite fearful of their data, sharing data. Could we just talk very briefly about how these apps actually work? How do they read your data? What are they not allowed to do?
Yeah, so this is something basically, it's developing over the last sort of 18 months, maybe a bit longer than that, something called open banking. So before open banking came into play, you would basically put your details, password details into these apps, these aggregators, and there's other things, fantastic things out there that we might get onto in a minute, like Chip and Plum and things. And you are basically giving them the access to read your account. There's no rights information there, so they won't be able to take any money and spend it or take it, but they will read your data. With open banking, this is a big industry-wide thing. It's been sort of sent down from government that they have to do this. All the banks have to allow third party, well, they have to give you access to your data to do with as you wish. And then you can use that to allow the banks to connect to these other apps. You have to give permission, but again, it should be so much more secure than the previous things that were there. And actually what you have to do, and it is a little bit frustrating, but it's good for safety. You often have to give permission again and again after, I think it's maybe 3 months, something like that. So you still want this app to have access to your, essentially your bank statements. So it's up to you. I would definitely read more about open banking if you're a little bit unsure about this. I'm personally, I mean, let's face it, your data and your information, it's one of those things, it's already kind of out of the, what's the phrase? It's a bit too late now in a lot of the ways to shut the barn door and all that. But it's definitely something to think about and be careful of. But hopefully open banking, there should be security allowances within that. Great,
thank you. And moving on from these I still can't say the word.
So, right, what's a short name for an alligator?
Allie?
No, the other one, the other part. If you were in like Florida or something, gator. And then, so aggregator.
There we go, thank you. I'm learning something new every day. So moving on from those things, what would be your next go-to money app?
Mention it briefly there. Some really interesting ones in the world of savings. So we know that a lot of the time why people don't save is because they don't have any money. But there are people who have money and they just don't prioritize their savings. So there's things you can do yourself, like pay yourself first. I'm sure that's something you've spoken about in your podcast a lot. I know it's very a you kind of thing as well. Standing orders to make sure your money goes to a savings account. And that's all great. And I think people should be doing that. But as a second option, or instead of, if you feel you don't have the money to save, is to look at things like Chip and Plum and Clio. All these fantastically names these apps will come up with, don't they? What these do, again, through open banking, you're connecting them to your account and they will analyze that information that they see there. They look at your regular outgoings, your irregular outgoings, I guess, look at your income, and it'll go using an algorithm of some kind. It'll go, we think you can afford to save £22 this week, this month, whatever it might be. You can just afford to spend, say, £5. And they all work slightly differently. Chip is the one that I've used most in the past. But it will then give you that option with Chip to say, like, we're going to save this amount of money to a separate savings account. Do you want to do it or not? Well, actually, do you not want it to happen? So you have to take that action to make yourself not save. If you let it go, it moves across. And this kind of background saving is the kind of thing that if the money was in your account, you would spend it somewhere. Okay, so this is what's quite nice about it. It is slowly, they build up a lovely little savings pot in the background for you. You can take that money out if you need it. So it's not kind of a locked away. Now you don't get any interest with any of these. So that is something to consider. So you might want to think about, actually, well, maybe I'll move that money when it gets to a certain amount to an account to get some cash. But fundamentally, if you struggle to save, these can help you. So I definitely would check those out.
Yeah, that's a great. So I'm a user of Plum. And we actually, in my Money Circle membership, somebody messaged me recently saying they've saved £1,200 via Plum since the start of the year. And that's now their emergency fund, which is that's like fantastic. Nuts, completely nuts. But yeah, what I love about these apps is, so Plum, I've actually done a did I do a podcast? I did a blog actually on Plum versus Clio, which I can pop a note in the show notes. But with Plum, it works via Facebook Messenger. And I believe they have an app now actually as well. They just upgraded, but I
think they're moving away from it, aren't they? Because Facebook has changed certain things. Yeah, I used to find that so annoying on Facebook. Keep popping up at me, telling me, yeah, like, oh, did you, hey, let's chat about your money. That didn't work for me, but it can work for some people.
Oh, I love it. Every morning when I wake up, they're like, we're gonna, based on your spending, we're going to put like 84 pence into your savings pot or something like that. But as you mentioned, every few months, I have a little chat with my little bot and I say how much is in my savings account. And then I do exactly what you just said there, Andy, is I have an emergency pot. I call it my...
Oh, we've lost you, Catherine. You've gone mute. I'll keep talking while you're there.
Oh, there we go. That was really strange. I'm back. So one thing I do is every couple of months, I then just shimmy money out of that pot into my Starling into my styling pot. And then as that pot builds up, I then move that into my cash ISA. And then if my cash ISA is getting too full, I then move that into my investment plan. So it is kind of juggling and moving things around. And I do it once a month. I have a money date with my husband on a Sunday, and we just check out all our pots and we make sure that we make any adjustments. So they're great little apps. Chip, Plum, Clio. There's a couple of similar ones.
And there's new ones coming all the time. So I think there is an element of like, do your research with these things. There's loads of reviews online from people like ourselves and so many other bloggers, often a lot of them part of that UK money bloggers community, who have used them. They've given them a go and they can give their kind of real feelings of whether it's good or not. But it's definitely something to add to that arsenal. Fabulous.
What about your, so we talked about some background saving apps. We talked about your banking apps. What else have you got for us today, Andy?
So there's a couple of ones which are more suited to shopping. Now, some of these things, we're not going to get as much use out of them right now, but maybe as restrictions ease, we might start using them more. One which I really like is called Stow Card, STO Card. And it's gone, it used to be called something else, but it's been this for a few years now. Essentially, you scan your loyalty cards onto your phone. So it doesn't, you're never going to be out shopping and not have that loyalty card to swipe when you're out and about. Oh, there you go. What have you got? You got AA, you got Boots.
I'm just sharing this on Facebook as we're talking on the podcast. Yeah, so this is my Stow Card app. Yeah, John Lewis, Costa, Nectar, Tesco's, Boots, like loads.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. Sometimes the machines can't read it when you're scanning the barcode.
Yeah,
which is a bit frustrating. But most of them have that feature for you to type stuff in, because there's so many, aren't there? You could have a loyalty card everywhere, and you end up just not having the one you need at a shop that you occasionally go to. I know it's slightly different for a lot of women who might have if you're anything like my wife, a massive purse which has all the cards in. But if your guy is generally, you've got a wallet which you want to keep it as a little bit more slimline, so you're not going to have as many things in it. So Stow Card is fantastic. I really like something called Idealo, and there's also one called PriceSpy. Now, generally, I will use those as desktop sites rather than apps. And a lot of the time when people talk about their favorite money apps, they're generally talking about the app version of a desktop site. But the reason I think these ones are actually quite good as apps for when you are out and about is these are price comparison sites for your general shopping. So you can be in a shop looking at something and thinking, well, can I get it cheaper anywhere else? Open up the app. Sometimes they let you scan a barcode. Most of the time just type it in, but it will very quickly tell you where else you can buy it for different prices. So I think that's why we choose those ones as apps, as useful apps. When you talk about things like Top Cashback, Quidco, yes, they're fantastic things, but most of us are going to use them on desktops because we do a lot of our shopping at home. And very quickly, a couple more that sort of fit into that. These are newer ones which are kind of introduced to me this year, actually, on my podcast. One of them, a guy called Jordan Cox, who's the coupon kid, he told me about this. It's called Airtime Rewards. This is a really interesting one. It gives you money back when it is cash back, but money back when you spend in certain shops, and the app will tell you which shops they are. And it will give you cash back between like 1% and maybe 5-6%. But that money will then go towards your mobile phone bill. Then you have to kind of save up a certain amount. So I think it's like a £5 minimum before you can cash it up to your bill. And that might take some time. But that's really good. And I started using this just before lockdown, and I was using it at Waitrose, which is my local supermarket, which was great. Places like Waitrose and Morrison's, they're not on it right now. But there are still plenty of shops and retailers on there. And again, you can use this on top of other kind of cashback purchases as well, whether that's through a cashback credit card like American Express or whether it is your Quidco and Top Cashback. So it's stacking these things on top. And similarly, this one was told to me by Emma Drew, who blogs at emmadrew.info, again, long-term money blogger, part of the community. And she told me about something called Zip Zero. And this is where you take a photo of your receipt and it will give you cash back towards other bills, household bills. So a similar kind of premise. Now, I've only been able to use this. She told me about it about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They stopped taking new customers at that time, but it's been back on this week. So I've literally today, I've been shopping for an old lady down the road and I've got a receipt. So I've scanned it today. It was, how much was the spending? It was £13 at M&S and I've got 7 pence added straight to my account. So they're both, I think, interesting things to think about. They're app only and they can be small little pennies that add up into pounds that will really sort of bring a little bit of cash off your bill every year for not too much effort. I mean, particularly something like Airtime Rewards, you add your card and it just doesn't have to do anything else. The money just adds on.
That's great. And actually, one of the Facebook listeners right now has said that they've now got a £10 minimum now for Airtime Rewards, apparently.
Okay.
But I think that's the thing with a lot of these apps is sometimes they'll update their criteria and things will change. One of the receipt apps I used to use was Receipt Hog.
Yeah.
And I must have scanned receipts in for about 6 months and got the equivalent of about a £15 Amazon voucher. So it probably wasn't the most valuable use of my time, but it was quite good fun. And actually, the best thing about the receipt apps I liked wasn't just the rewards. It was, those odd times when you want to return something, you're like, oh crap, where's the receipt? And then I just go straight into my Receipt Hog app and I've scanned it in. So actually, I quite like it for that purpose.
That's fantastic. Do you ever use any of the supermarket cashback apps?
So no, so I have my business life insurance through Vitality, and Vitality they have a connection with a Ocado and Waitrose for reward points that reduce the cost of your life cover. So we use that, but so yeah, I haven't used any specific food-based apps. So you're going to give me some more I can add to my list?
Well, do you know what? They're worth having. The big ones are Shop Me and Checkout Smart. There's also one called Green. I think you say Green Genie, but it's GINN. I think that's that's how you say it. But anyway, not how you spell it. The idea, but there are certain products that are listed on these apps. They're generally new products, of which the brands want you to give them a try. And to give them a try, they give you, I don't know, 50p off, £1 off. Sometimes they're freebies, so it's worth looking at. And they're worth having. And when you go to the supermarket, maybe flip up the app and just see what's available where you are. The problem I have with them a little bit is that they're encouraging you to buy things you wouldn't necessarily buy. So if it's a decent price with that discount and you want to give it a go, perfect. And there are often some good products on there, not just brand new things, some high street staples. But yeah, they're interesting ones, but they're not going to be huge money savers. But definitely, I think, have them on your phone when you go to the shops.
Awesome, great. And I've got to ask you, Andy, why do you have 14 bank accounts?
I can't get into it. They all have different reasons. So some of them it is around the savings rate that you'll get from that account. Obviously not as good as they have been previously, but there are some which give you probably the best rates you can get out there on a limited amount of money. Some of them might give me a freebie. So I get a free magazine every single month from Lloyd's. Some of them might give you fee-free spending overseas. That's why Starling, banks like that, and Monzo. There's all different reasons that I've got each one. But I can give you the link to the podcast so people, if they want to have a listen, they can click through to it and give it a go.
Yeah, great. That'd be amazing. And any final top money saving tip for how people can, anything else that you haven't already mentioned that you wanted to share with the audience?
Oh, that's just too much, isn't it? They talk about sometimes you'd have your elevator pitch, shouldn't they? If you walked into that, you've got 1 minute with someone who you really want to pitch your idea, you need to have it there rehearsed. Maybe I need to have that, because you do get asked as a money journalist, a money blogger, that quite a lot. What's your top money blogging tip? And I never have that ready.
Okay, so let me rephrase this then. So you're on death row, Andy, and someone's knocking on your door and they're like, right, you can have your last meal and your last money saving tip you can share with the world. What would you share?
That's just the same question, but now I've got death hanging over me. I'm about to die. Make sure you do this. If there's some tombstone, what do you want to say? Andy Webb. Not like if I was a nice guy, good husband, or any of that kind of thing. No. Andy Webb says use cashback sites. I don't know. But you know what? Cashback sites are something that I've been using for a long time now. They are easy. It takes a couple of extra clicks to do this. You're not always guaranteed the money each time, so I wouldn't shop because of that. But you will be able to earn some money, particularly on some of those bigger purchases, like switching your broadband, things like that. You can get a decent amount of cash. So if you haven't used them, do check them out. It's probably not the top one, but it's a good one.
No, and I think that would be my last one. If I was on death row, my last meal would be a curry. What would your last meal be?
Again, something I would need to rehearse. I don't know. Do you know what it is? I would go for a roast dinner, probably lamb, because I love mint sauce. Mint sauce is my top condiment. Again, I could do a podcast about condiments. It's not money based. And but I would have roast potatoes. But I would have roast potatoes that I make, or my mum makes, or my dad makes. Roast potatoes in pubs and restaurants are awful. These ones. The secret is using butter and to use forks to flake up the outside.
And you got to fluff them up.
Yeah. That's a secret. None of this goose fat or olive oil or anything like that. Butter.
I love that. I think my best money app would, Starling Bank, I'm a huge lover of, as my audience know, I talk about them all the time. But Top Cashback for me is the best one, because once you get into the habit of using it, every time I buy anything online, if I renew any of my insurances, my Sky account, my mobile phone contracts, everything is done through Top Cashback. So I think I've got to like over £4,000 since I've been using Top Cashback. Now, I know I used to be an emotional spender, so I probably spent more than most people did, but not anymore. I'm a recovered emotional spender. So, but I do use it for everything. You know, if it's any small purchase, I either use Kidsstart, Top Cashback, or Quidco. And I know a lot of the money bloggers talk about those cashback sites too. So they are great because they're just, you would shop with that website anyway. You're just opening up that website via one of the Top Cashback websites. So it's a great habit to get into. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens just generally with all these kind of money saving things as we sort of progress now into this recession that is going to happen. Marketing budgets, which fund a lot of these bank switching incentives or high interest, or fund cashback and things like that. That all comes from marketing budgets. Often these are the things that get slashed early on. So we might find our returns are reduced, but when you need more money, I think anything you can do to make those pennies and those pounds come back to you so you can use them where you really need them, I think they're important to keep with, even if their returns aren't as good, which I think potentially we might be sort of seeing a lot more of soon. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Really good point. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for coming onto the podcast today. And if anybody wants to follow your blog, where can they find you? So the blog is becleverwithyourcash.com. Podcast is called Cash Chat. So just search for that. You'll find that. And on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Andy Clever Cash. So you can find me there and ask me any questions if you want. Great. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for coming on today, Andy. Enjoy your bank holiday weekend. Oh, thank you. Just say it's a pleasure. It's really nice to be on the other side of the interview for once, because I'm always talking to other people and it's rare that I get to do this. It's been really fun. Nice to see how things go and just to have a nice little chat. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. And Andy and I are about to go offline and actually talk about podcasting, like tips. I'm gonna share some tips. But thank you so much for listening to the podcast this week. We'll put all of the links we've mentioned today in the show notes. And thank you for those of you that have been listening on Facebook. Have a wicked weekend. Catch you soon. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do me a big favor and leave me a comment below this video and let me know, what was your one biggest takeaway? What are you going to do differently as a result of watching today's video? Now, you can go ahead and check out more free resources available to you at the website, which is themoneypanel.co.uk, or please feel free to tune into our weekly podcast on all of the typical podcast channels. That's In Her Financial Shoes. And remember, small steps, big wins. Let's go.